records. Smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on vinyl and vision.
For those of you watching the video, not incorporating any music, of course, because I can't really, but I will provide you a small glimpse of this footage that I obtained of David Ayer performing at the Rock and Roll Yard Sale, like I did on the whale guitar. He happened to be here and was in the state for this opportunity for this event, and I think I coerced him into playing the whale guitar after I did. Hello, welcome to the episode 51 of Vinyl and Vision with my very special guest and very good friend, David Ayer. David Ayer has been a very good friend of mine for a very long time. We go very far back, and we get into that a little bit in the episode. But he is a talented actor and musician, and even a producer. He has some production credits that he's working on, and we do discuss that as well. They go into a little bit further detail. But primarily an actor now. He has been a musician in the past, as far as like being in bands and things like that. Nothing too successfully, but you know, acting is his passion now, and we discuss that as well. So listen up for that. He lives in California now, in Los Angeles, and but he was from Rhode Island. He was from these areas, and that's how we had met. So considering he's an actor, he is a musician. He has that background. He has that ability. So it still seemed, you know, logical to speak with him on this show about a musical influence. We did not really kind of touch on the idea of like, well, you know, how does music affect your acting ability? You know, as far as it being an actor, like how does that influence that art form? But he is a musician, and therefore, I'm assuming, because we didn't talk about it, that that the choice of this album was probably more of an influence on what he knows and does musically. Either way, I found it to be very interesting, and the album he chose was Paul Simon's Graceland, which I was not thrilled about at first, and I get into more detail on that in the show, so I will not go into that now, but it's an interesting album. I do like it. There are certainly some aspects that I really do like and appreciate about it, because I mean, it's a massively influential record. I mean, it's incredibly popular. It has the ability to, you know, get those hooks dug into you, and so it's kind of unavoidable. It's one of those things. So I don't know how you people out there feel about this record, but you know, there's plenty to talk about it. So I will go over some of the details and the facts of the record with you. And so if you are unknowledgeable of this record and not really know much about the history of it and the making of it and so forth, you can devise your own opinion. But it's a little bit of a lengthy one, so I'm going to make this a little short. Just say, you know, thank you, of course, for tuning in and doing all the things you do with the internet. Please, if you appreciate and like the show, share with a friend, comment, like, all those things, and then rate and review as well. That helps us out here, and you know, hopefully gets the show bumped up in the ratings, because that matters. And enjoy my conversation with my good friend David Ayer.
Yeah, so I don't know, when do you want to start? Like, actually?
Oh, we're starting. We're in it already.
Oh. So you're going to keep all that stuff in?
No, of course not. No, I'm a really good editor. I'm like really good at kind of splicing stuff and cutting things out. Or like even like what I'm saying right now.
That.
Oh no, I understand. I get it completely, because I mean, you also kind of do this for yourself, right? Because you were an executive producer for Mary B's show, right?
Yes.
Finding Harmony is what it's called, right?
Yeah.
So I assume you were doing some editing for that as well.
Yeah. So, you want to talk about that? I mean,
get into it, man.
Sure. All right. Cool. Well, you know, I'm glad to talk about it, and I'll tell you why. Because of all the things that I've ever done, music, film, this project is by far, hands down, the best project I've ever done. Piece of art that I will, you know, if I die tomorrow, that'll be my crowning achievement
Hmm.
for me.
Okay.
um, because I've had a lot of great collaborations with people, bands and films, but this was such from the top to the very bottom, and close as you can be with anybody in developing a project. In this case, it was a series where uh, Mary B is a singer, and she's a beautiful singer. She sings gorgeous, and she loves singing harmonies to people. She loves being the backup, and she also really loves developing, collaborating with other singers in developing the harmonies. And so her idea was, hey, I'd like to meet new people. I'd like to film the process where you meet somebody and you don't really know each other, but you come together in over music. You sit down, you have some tea, you just start vibing, and you start putting together, a song. In whether it's a song that was original, or a new take on an old song that was a cover.
Hmm.
and um and you just get to know somebody through music, rather than just uh at work, or through a friend or something. And then we would film the all of that, and then we would film the actual collaboration of them singing together. And what was nice too is that it was a very fluid conversation, kind of like what we're having,
Hmm.
in that it wasn't interview style. it
Right.
it was um uh
Conversationalist.
yeah, well, and because it was, we wanted to hear just as much about the what the word harmony meant to Mary, just as much as we wanted to hear it from the guest.
Hmm.
And our initial jump forte into doing this series, we went big. We planned out a
Hmm.
3-month European trip. We had artists from Ireland, 3, I think, from various parts of England, 2 people from France, and 1 person from Italy.
Hmm.
And we sort of made our rounds. So we did go to Scotland, and we actually went to Amsterdam, but no artists for that.
Okay.
Um, but it was a vacation. It was a Uh, I mean, it was the best time of my life, I would say. I'd
Yeah.
never been to Europe before, and a lot of our friends are in bands, and they'll go touring over in Europe, and the complaint was always the same. It's like, yeah, you pull into a city like Amsterdam or something, be like, yeah, I remember playing in Amsterdam. So how was it? Well, we pulled in around 5 o'clock. We loaded up, and then we slept in a
Sat in the green
hotel,
room.
and yeah, and then we left the next day, for so you don't get to see the city.
Hmm.
So we made these visits to these different cities. We actually like sort of set up camp for a few days or like a week or something. So we'd also, part of the series was travel,
Hmm.
kind of not just getting to know the guests, but also getting to know maybe somewhat of like how they came to be, like what maybe influenced them, the environment that they were living in, and
Right.
the other artists that were maybe in the area that sort of influenced them. Kind of like how we get very much influenced by everyone in Providence.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I will say that as much as pop, punk, uh, indie rock music from you know the and folk, from around the world and from different times, there's a huge part of me that is also rooted in Providence's vast music.
Hmm.
Um, because when you think of Providence, it's like, oh, you think of noise bands, right?
Yeah.
Like that, that is a thing, but there's also there was a great folk scene at one point, and there was a great
Yeah.
indie scene,
There's a number of great bands and a number of different genres from this area.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, and they've gone on to various degrees of success and acclaim. So
Mhm.
some people outside of our bubble of Rhode Island, probably know some of these bands. But yeah, for us speaking about it, I don't think about Rhode Island as just like a noise rock scene. I mean, I think that it's it's a good one. I think that it's probably the most thriving genre currently, um, in the city. But yeah, I mean, I know personally, I know all the other bands that are happening around here, or at least like I'm in touch with most of it. At least
Sure.
I'm not gonna say I'm a scholar of all these bands. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot in just this little state. It's kind of stupid.
Sure. Well, that's kind of one of the beauties of this state is it's
Right.
so small that it's what's the old Providence band, V for Vendetta, had that song title. It was like, Providence is a small town and word gets around.
Oh, well, that's a very true statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't really avoid that.
Mm.
I noticed that you had a production credit for the Deer Tick film.
Oh.
What was
Yeah,
that? What was that, the part that you played in that?
yeah. Okay, so around 2008, um I actually no, I'm sorry. It was 2006.
Mhm.
I had a very bad breakup. It was a breakdown, actually, depression.
Okay.
And I'll get real on here.
Sure. Hey, man.
I think some of the stigma of mental health is because of the pandemic has gone out the window, which is great because it makes people talk a little bit more open about that sort of thing. And
Right.
so yeah, in 2006, I had a very well, I was really depressed, and it was to the point where I ended up going into Butler outpatient program, which is a hospital for mental health.
Mhm.
And um, while there, some of the things that they wanted me to develop was just uh, habits that could help me get out of this depression or manage it when it comes.
Mhm.
And so one of the things they suggested was getting out, being social, and doing that sort of thing. And I had really been a recluse. And so I thought about at that moment and just thinking about my life and how many, and I don't know why, but um, I've been, going to, music shows since I was 17 or something like that. And I thought, oh man, how many great shows, great bands, great performances I've seen in my life, and how many I couldn't remember.
Mhm.
And it bummed me out because if my memory goes, that sort of documentation is now the only thing I have from that. It's
Right.
gone. And so I thought, well, maybe if I start bringing, going out and being social again, maybe I will take this time to actually start documenting uh, all of these experiences that I have and really supporting other musicians and artists by exposing what I get exposed to by going out all the time. Because a lot of people don't typically go out all like I would go out 3 or 4 times a week to see bands,
Mhm.
and that's not everybody. So
Oh,
there's a lot of like performances, a lot of great stuff that people miss just because of that. And it's not like FOMO or anything, but like, you know, um, but I wanted other people to see this and maybe appreciate and maybe go out and support and that sort of thing. So when I decided to start going out, I decided, okay, well, maybe I'll get a video camera. Maybe I'll get a mini disc recorder, and I'll start going to shows again and start being social with people. But I'll start, like, for my own self, documenting
Hmm.
these performances, and so that's what I did. And this was before cell phones that were like, had good video, and
Right.
it wasn't convenient,
No.
and you looked weird. Like, I would always look weird with this camera and this like little mini disc recorder, like,
Mhm.
but I didn't care because I loved music. That's why I was there. And so, getting back to your question, is that I the first time that I saw Deer Tick play was in a kitchen in Providence, and I I brought my little handy cam Sony recorder and my my mini disc, like I always did, and I sat down in the corner and I just filmed the whole thing. I didn't really ask them, and at
Right.
that time nobody really cared,
Yeah.
And then that was like really right around the time that YouTube started, and I edited the video together and uploaded it to YouTube. And that's kind of where I began to become friends with John. I had a radio show at the same time as part of this, again, getting out of the depression and just being social.
Hmm.
And so then the next time that I had that I saw him and filmed and everything was actually on my radio show. We did a live, instead of in the studio at the radio station, we actually did it in the Brown University. They have like a little cafe kind of thing down there. And we live streamed it, and we filmed it, and I took some of that video and I posted it. It's this small little group of like 10, 20 people sitting in this little kitchen, and there's some popular songs that he was singing that they weren't, like, the record was out, but it wasn't like, it wasn't really huge or anything yet.
Right.
But like, these friends of his knew his songs, so they would just sing. Well, when people came across this video, like, there was almost like sing-alongs. And so there's another video that I took about probably like the next year, and they had gotten big to the point now that they were playing their first show at Lupo's, which is like the big, for anybody who's not around, it's like the big venue in Providence. And just filled it. And you can see the look on his face, because the moments that the original kitchen video of like singing along now was happening all at him in this big, huge venue. And it was the first time you can see on his face, like he steps back from the mic, and he's like, what?
Right.
And it was like, for me, it was like really a great feeling, because it meant that I actually did have some impact on this artist, that I
and their
loved.
career, and like help build them up, help get the word out, basically.
Yeah. Like the intention that I had, like, a year or two before or whatever, to prop up music so other people would hear it, was happening. And so but anyway, I filmed them, recorded them many, many times over the years. And so when the producers approached me, they were like looking for like old footage, new footage, and whatever. And John just said, hey, email David Ayer, and like just sent them my email, and then we talked. And I gave them, I don't know, 10, 15 videos and like the audio from them. And so, he asked, like, I'd like to give you a producer credit, because there's a lot of footage from you in this that makes up the,
Right.
So yeah, I was a bit proud of that. I was like, there's a you
It's
know,
great.
um,
So,
well,
um, first of all, thank you for doing this and coming on and talking with me.
dude, thank you so. Like, I've wanted to do this since you started because I just didn't know what record really, because as you can guess, I have a many like favorite what I call perfect records.
Yeah, yeah. There's a long list, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Everyone's got one. I know it's a hard ask. You know, um, I think psychologically that asking this question to somebody, asking some, especially to a musician, because it's typically I speak to musicians,
Yeah.
and it's uh, it's very revealing about something about their personality that maybe they didn't even realize themselves until they made this choice. You know,
Mm.
so
Hmm.
that's what I'm realizing. I mean, 50 shows in now. I mean, like I've talked to a
Yeah.
lot of people, and then like so
Congrats
I've been.
by that on that.
Thank you very much. Um, so it's very interesting, to kind of to see what that is. Um, so let's go ahead and say that the album that you chose was Paul Simon's Graceland.
Hmm.
Paul Francis Simon. I love that. I found out his middle name. Paul
I
Frederick.
didn't.
I'm sorry, Frederick. Say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so what was the experience like for you, like being introduced to that record? Let's start there.
So when I was, I, I, I want to say 13, I think. Um, I was living with I, my parents were getting a divorce,
Okay.
and they shipped me to my grandfather's house in Arkansas, and so the city slicker was no more. I was in very rural Arkansas.
Mm.
It took about sometimes an hour to get to like the grocery store. Like,
Oh, okay. You're
um,
deep.
yeah, no, the deep south for sure. Yeah, the next door neighbor was very far away.
Yeah.
Um, and um, my grandfather's wife was this woman Linda, and we sometimes it almost felt like grandfather had a lot of things that he had to do, and he owned a bike repair shop, um, and so sometimes it felt like, Linda, can you just take this 13-year-old brat and go do something with him, like, um, and uh and so we would have these long, let's go to the grocery store, let's go run errands,
Hmm. Yeah.
and so we'd have this long hour drive out to the grocery store. Well, she had picked up this Paul Simon Graceland tape, and at the time, I find this kind of funny, but um I had only liked, I hated music.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
absolutely, yeah, I was all about video games.
Sure.
um just that age, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
um and so the only band that I actually liked was Guns N' Roses. That was it. I would
Respectable.
only, yeah.
Sure.
um but she played it a lot, and as it was played on this long hour long journey there and then back and then there and back, um it just grew on me. And yeah, since then it is, there's not like the end of the song, of a song,
Mhm.
you can already hear the beginning of the next song in your head. You already know what's coming next. Is
Mhm.
is how like embedded in my brain this record is.
Right. So, because were you listening to this tape nonstop all the time in the car with the grandmother?
Yeah, but here's the thing that was funny. I thought for sure that it's because she loved it, because when I was leaving to go back home, she goes, "Here, take the tape with you." I was like, "What? You don't want it?" She's like, "No." So I don't know if she like wanted me to just like shut me up and listen to the music the entire time, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, was just did never liked the I don't know if she liked that Paul Simon record or not. To this day, I don't know. But
It seems that she didn't. She wanted you to take it with her. She
yeah,
obviously didn't need to listen to it again.
yeah.
What was she listening to at the time? Like like was there music in that household?
There really wasn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. I had you know, I had like a little cassette recorder that I would listen to Guns N' Roses on.
Hmm.
Um, um, and how that ties into now, I guess, is um, I I actually went back. I actually hadn't seen my grandfather in since that time till it was 2010 when Mary B and I, the end of 2010, Mary B and I drove out to LA from Rhode Island, our big move cross country.
Hmm.
And on our way out there, so it was like 20 years or some odd years later that I would actually get reacquainted with my grandfather. And we just, we regrew this history that we had lost in these 20 years.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, over the past 10 years, we've gotten to be close. Unfortunately, just last month, he passed away. And so I've actually been down in Arkansas twice in the last month.
Yeah.
And all of these memories, including this Paul Simon
Oh.
experience, which is kind of probably why it was at the forefront of my brain when I was thinking about what's a record
Yeah.
that I would like to talk about.
Right. Right.
But
Well, I gotta say, I'm sorry. First of all, I'm sorry for your loss. I mean, I ran into you a couple weeks ago, and so this was all still very fresh. And you told me about it, and then I said I'm sorry then, but I just want to say that again now. That because that's it's never an easy thing to do to lose somebody you love. Um, I
sure.
think that is
Well,
very
thank you.
telling and very kind of timely that this happens to be how we're having this conversation, and that is a very unique situation because from what you're telling me, you weren't listening to music until this moment. And then it happened to be this album that kind of launched a long love of music.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Okay. That makes sense. And that's probably when I met, like right around when I met you. It's like, probably somewhere around there, maybe a little later.
I yeah, it probably would have been yeah. Because how did I meet you? Because I do you remember? Because I
We
don't
were
really.
living in an apartment across from each other.
You lived downstairs from me.
No, I lived across the hall. There was this big apartment in on the east side of Providence on Hope Street.
Hope Street.
I was
Yes,
living with my
and
brother
right
Oscar at the time.
downstairs was the Thai restaurant.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
yes,
And
that,
convenience store.
yes,
Yeah. And so it was one of those kind of split buildings where there was apartments on either side and there was a kind of a hallway in between.
right,
So you were
yeah,
like our hall mate. You were
right,
living across the hall. And yeah, that's where we first met.
yep, yep. I remember that now. Yeah, yep.
Yeah. And I think I remember all that stuff, all the punky bleach blonde hair and all that stuff. Like that was that era, I feel.
That was yeah, yeah, yeah. That's accurate. Yeah,
Cool. Um, so let's see. We should probably get into this record.
yeah.
So, Paul Simon's Graceland, massive fucking record. I mean, okay, so historically speaking, okay, sold about 60 million copies worldwide up to this point.
Wow.
Hugely influential. I mean, it was released in 1986, and there is a little bit of controversy surrounding this album.
Hmm.
You're familiar with all of these things?
Is this the controversy you're talking about where like Paul probably stole stuff?
Well, there's that, and then there's also like the actual creation of the record because he kind of seemingly kind of went against the apartheid laws. There was
Oh.
like a not a ban. All right, I'll just say ban. So there was a ban on musicians and travel restrictions. There's all these things that you know they're basically trying to, um, especially like entertainment industry wise, I suppose. They didn't want people coming in and working with the government and making money and all that stuff, and like they were just trying to bring attention to apartheid and you know obviously how horrible it was.
Hmm.
And so he basically kind of went against that at that very moment because at the crew, so he was inspired to go there in the first place because he found this mixtape. He was working with this woman, Heidi Berg. She was one of the lead singers of the backing band for SNL.
Oh, whoa.
And Lauren Michaels put him in touch with her because she was just like, she's a up and coming singer. She wants to make a record and she needs a producer. Would you be interested in producing her? And at this time, Paul Simon's going through a rough patch. He's already had an album tank. He's decided to make a movie which tanked. So he's running, you know, is down on his luck.
Yeah,
His,
I do know about that, and Carrie Fisher.
yes,
and
his
yeah,
marriage to
they
Carrie
broke-
Fisher was deteriorating. So he's going through a rough spot.
Mm,
And so he meets this woman, Heidi Berg, and she gives him a tape saying, I want to make music similar to this. And it was actually, it was a mixtape of South African music. I guess it was called Accordion Jive Hits #2. And so there was some kind of like, you know, big name South African artists on there. One of them primarily being the Boyoyo Boys, which actually are featured on this album. So basically, you know, he wanted to go down there to kind of meet these artists, to get to work with them. And for all intent and purposes, it seems like he basically just gave the finger to everybody that told him you shouldn't go down there. Like you have no business being there. You know, it's not a really good opportunity, like not a good time to try to get down there and try to do any kind of work. He kind of made up for it. He tried to make up for it. He overpaid all of the musicians, all of the session musicians, like $200 an hour, you know, whereas they would normally be paid 15 an hour. So,
interesting.
you know, he's just, so this album, like from what I knew, like little bits of it that I knew before, you know, I was trying to do the research for tonight.
Sure.
I was kind of turned off by Paul Simon because of the controversy, because of what you said and how, you know, there's this air of, you know, controversy around him stealing music or not giving enough credit to the musicians that were due.
Mm.
Particularly with Los Lobos, because they actually were the only band that actually like took some kind of legal action against him, which according to the research that I was doing, he says that the first he ever heard of it was 6 months after the album was released. You know, he got a letter from their lawyer basically stating that's like that they deserved writing credits on the song that they performed on. And I mean, and so what the Los Lobos will say is that, yeah, Paul Simon said, go ahead, sue me, see what happens. So I was just like, okay, Paul Simon, like, there's just so many things about his history that have like rubbed me wrong that I've just like, okay, I don't want to deal with Paul Simon. You know, I know the hits, fine by me. Because like I don't know, he just seems to have this like naivete or just complete disregard. Like he just does whatever the fuck he wants. You know, I mean, like, and when you reach the level that he's at now, I mean, yeah, you get to do whatever you want. I don't know. So we'll get into that too, but let's see. We should probably just go ahead and start the album, and which we're going to do right now.
Yep. Cool.
Let's go ahead and start with The Boy in the Bubble. So this song is The Boy in the Bubble. You seemed obviously very enthusiastic about this song. You really dig it.
It's such a great introduction to a record. It's
Yeah.
boom, 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 and it's like it's I'm not even necessarily sure. Like, it
The
sounds like
accordion.
accordion. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, what, is this going to be a Weird Al record? What is going on here? Like, is Alec K. Redford and the Eyesores doing something? What's going on? You
Hmm.
know, and then you hear like a Phil Collins or like a Def Leppard pound down down pound,
Right.
and you're like, what? That's a weird mixture.
Right.
And
It's
then
like that
all,
rock and roll blend.
yeah, yeah, with this accordion. What is up with that? And then instead of coming in with guitars, let's just bring in a bass. It's like brown, 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 brown,
Right.
and it's just a weird thing for like a major label, like inventive, creative piece of art. Like,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. It's just a great. Oh, and as soon as I hear it, like I get excited, like, and I'm like, yes. And then of course it kicks in, and then you're like, you got the steady beat, and now you're, and then the lyrics and the way
Hmm.
he like presents them. It was a slow day, um it I'll say that a lot of people like to, Simon and Garfunkel and stuff like that, and I like it okay.
Hmm.
um but it was I'm a kind of, I would say that this is more my thing rather
Sure.
than that, and it's very
Yeah.
different from
From
what
anything
he
he's ever done in the
yeah
past.
yeah
Yeah. This was actually very much a transition for him, and a massive one at that. Um, so two things I think, based on what you were saying, the bass comes in. I can't stand the bass sound on this song.
I've,
Production wise on this album, it saunters, kind of goes a little bit both ways. First opening, I'm like, okay, it sounds like this guy's playing a flat tire. Like it's just
yep.
weird, shapeless, kind of just mumbling going on. Um, I know it's a fretless bass. I understand. Like I'm not like,
Yeah.
ignorant to
Yeah.
what it is that's making this noise. I'm just like, I don't, it doesn't gel with me. It kind of irks me a little bit. So, okay. So we got to move on to Graceland now.
Mm.
Speaking of all these situations, so jangly, huh?
Yeah.
Pretty
But
great song.
I yeah. Well, yeah, it's it's one of the things that's funny, I think, about this being the first real experience outside of Guns N' Roses of appreciating music. Um, it's a pretty vast area between Guns N' Roses and what sounds like a country song.
Hmm.
Um,
I'd venture to say those are polar opposites.
yeah. um, but the jangly guitar too is, and it comes in at that point. All of a sudden, it sort of lifts up, uh, almost more like a positive sort of
Mm.
side.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. I mean, musically, the music is all very upbeat, very up tempo. Just good good feeling music.
mhm.
You know, it's the lyrics that really bum you out and that really like kind of hit you. Um, so Graceland, Graceland has taken on a greater metaphorical meaning than Simon had originally intended. So much so that it became the name of the album. Graceland was actually a throwaway lyric.
Hmm.
The whole refrain of "I'm going to Graceland, going Graceland," that was all going to be shit canned.
Hmm.
But he just kept on singing it. He kind of kept on using it as that placeholder lyrically, and that it kind of started to kind of all fit together, and then he couldn't change it. And
Hmm.
then, like I said, it had this greater meaning to the song, which is, um, essentially, kind of like a kind of a very worldly, like a worldview of just kind of like trying to find something, I think,
Mhm.
right? Like you're trying to find Graceland is taking on like this metaphor of like the promised land, like something that people are in search for some kind of redemption, salvation, peace, whatever it is, you know.
Mhm.
So, with all of this being said, have you ever been to Graceland?
I figured that was the question where you were going with that. You know, what's funny is I've actually I've been to Memphis. I'd say 4 or 5 times, 6 times. I have friends that live there.
Mhm.
But I, as funny as this, as ironic as it is that I've selected this record, I with this name, I've never, I would say never. It's sort of I'm never there long enough to really be able to kind of explore all the kind of famous aspects of Memphis.
Sure.
Um, but I'm a huge Otis Redding fan.
Hmm.
He's one of my favorite singers, and so when I go there, I always have to go to Stax Records.
Oh, cool.
I did finally go to Sun the last time I was there, but I didn't actually do the tour. It was just
Yeah, just seeing the sights kind of passing through.
yeah. Um, and again, I wanted to spend more time at Stax again, so uh, that took up most of the day. Graceland, you know, I it wasn't. It was probably 3 or 4 times of going to Memphis before I found out that Graceland. I always pictured Graceland as being this huge like field, like not field, but like this vast like a nature preserve, like huge vast plains.
Hmm.
And then I found out no, it's just a house.
Yeah.
And I was like a little semi disappointed with that fact.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I've never actually gone.
Okay. So, follow-up question is that
Mm.
because of the deeper meaning, being something along the lines of, search for comfort and inner peace and stuff like that,
Mhm.
what do you think could be your Graceland?
Italy.
Hmm. Yeah, you've been
um,
there.
yeah, when we did the Finding Harmony TV show, yeah, so my heritage is French. I'm a Frenchman. Um, and one of the biggest things for me doing this Europe uh, trip and everything was I couldn't wait to finally kiss the soil of France,
Hmm.
where my ancestors were from, in the town that we came from. And but Italy ended up being like really the thing that really got me.
Hmm.
And we were all over southern, northern Italy. Um, everything is art there. Everywhere you look, the architecture,
Hmm.
the churches are beautiful. We would walk around at night, and in the churches, they would have concerts uh, open to the public that had nothing to do with the church. This was just like a venue,
Right.
and it would have like classical music or opera, which is not, I appreciate that stuff, but I definitely don't go listening and going, actively searching out for that type of music.
Right.
But it is different when it is being played live in this beautiful atmosphere.
Hmm.
You can just feel the music and be moved by it. um, and it doesn't need to have lyrics, which is usually what I need.
Hmm.
It doesn't need to have like singing. Um, the food is art. The way that the chefs, and I wouldn't even say chefs, like I remember one of the artists that we interviewed, I had bought like frozen soup just
Hmm.
because we had to travel late, and so I just got a frozen soup. It was like, oh, just put it in the microwave and warm it up. I'll have that for lunch and whatever. She's like, no. Why would you have soup for lunch? First off, you're not sick. She's like, that's the only time you have soup apparently in Italy is when you're sick,
Yeah.
which I thought was funny. Um, she's like, no, we enjoy food. Like it is part of our life here
Yeah.
is,
Right.
and in my life, that's not it. I grab a bite, like it's less important for me to get something to eat than it is to go watch a band play.
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
and so it's just living your whole being is just uh living in art. I don't know how else to describe it. I think for me
Mm.
that's my Graceland, I think.
Cool. I'm sure it is. I have not. I've been to Italy, but I've only been to Rome. But some from what I have seen, it's like it can be amazing as far as just like the landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Um, we should move on.
Yep.
We might have to skip a couple songs. There's a couple that actually I'm not really terribly involved with. Like I'm not really don't have
Sure.
a lot for them.
This is your
So
show, man.
yeah, yeah. Well, I just figured just kind of save us some time, and I've always been interested in the inner workings of the industry because it's just something that is like if you're not in it, you you don't know anything about it. Like there's no way to
Sure.
find out anything about it. You know.
Sure.
So I find it interesting. Even acting. I mean, I'm not an actor. Never really aspired to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I really admire that industry because I mean I'm a big film fan. I love movies. I love acting. I love seeing acting all the time.
Sure.
Just don't know jack about it really, about how it's really done.
Yeah. It was a completely new thing for me, having always been in Providence, always being surrounded by musicians and not film.
Mm.
And so LA was a very big kind of awakening for me. Um, and if you want, I'll drop an anecdote here, and you can cut it out if you want, or you can leave it
Sure.
in. But
Yeah.
if we're just having a discussion, I'll elaborate. But
Yeah.
um, when I came to basically, it was about a year after we moved to LA, and I just still just was thinking about music and whatever, and but I was depressed. All my friends were back home in Rhode Island, 3,000 miles away,
Mm.
and Mary B, was obviously like influenced by like my being, and didn't want to see me like that. So one day I woke up and there was a note that just said that just had a time and an address, and was like, go here at this time. I was like,
Mm.
what the hell? So I went, and I ended up in front of a theater, and it was an audit for an acting class. And I was like, this is weird. Okay. And I sat down, and within literally 5 minutes of like the beginning of the class, I knew my life had changed. I
Mm.
knew what I wanted to do. And when I came back to actually be a part of the class, there was no instruction. It was our introduction was here's the script, get up on stage and just read. So that's what I did. Got off the stage after, and somebody comes up to me and goes, I love your work, in the most sincere. And I was like, all I did was read some lines. Like I know work.
Right.
I've done work. This was fun. This was, and I think at that moment it was clear to me that I had found my calling.
That's great.
And that's my story about why
How you got into acting.
Yeah.
Wild. That's great. I mean, sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you just need a little push in the right direction, and you never aspired previously. Like you never even thought about it.
Never thought about it once. And I've my favorite films were definitely like early 90s or mid 90s like independent films like Pie and Buffalo 66 and I don't know, like all those sort of indie films that were like different, that were weird, with the equivalent of like punk rock music, just trying to break rules.
Right.
And but not me doing that.
Well, it might be now. It's wild. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. I love hearing about it because it's such an interesting part of the world that like not many people really think about, but I think about it all the time actually. So, all right. So we got to move on.
Yep.
Gumboots is the next song.
Weird title. I've never understood the title. Did you know the meaning behind the title?
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, good.
It's
I like to be educated.
It basically came about because it was based off of one of the songs on that tape that he was introduced to, that Accordion Jive Hits #2 was Gumbuta, which was actually done by the group that he's working with on this song, the Boyoyo Boys. So so this is kind of like a cover, but with his own lyrics. Which is essentially kind of like what a lot of this album is like, like he brings in all these people that are playing their style of music, and he either gives them an idea, like kind of gives them a very, very general. It was actually a very big jam session. As a matter of fact, this record kind of couldn't even have been made if they had not been using digital technology, because essentially what they did was have like, these long jam sessions, recorded everything, and then his producer, oh shit, what's his producer's name? I forget. Roy Haley. Roy Haley, I don't know how you pronounce his name. Longtime producer of Paul Simon's, engineer, technically. He was working as the engineer on this and basically transferred everything from analog to digital and then brought everything from Johannesburg, South Africa, where they were recording, back to the States. And, they did other sessions elsewhere. They did some sessions in, what is that called? Abbey Road Studios in London. They did stuff at the Hit Factory in New York City. Ultimately, basically pieced a lot of this stuff together, which is why in some of these songs, and I think this might be one of them, there's a lot of fading out.
Yes.
Because you just had to like fade these songs out because like there was no construction to them. It's just kind of like, okay, this is a good place to stop it, So there's a lot of that. That's a big fact about this record. But so yeah, a lot of editing, and so that this album is kind of like, revelatory in that sense that they were using the state of the art technology at the time And as long as it may have taken, because I can only imagine what it was like to freaking record hours of stuff and transfer it to digital from back in 86 or
Yeah.
84 when they started this. And then there's also the idea that you were saying earlier how this like it sounded like he had no regard for anything, like he just wasn't thinking about, you know, making a hit song or anything. It was just kind of like, you know, working with the inspiration, something along those lines, which was very true because his label basically gave up on him. They were not expecting anything out of him because he was already having such failure in succession to this moment. So they had no idea what he was doing. And he did have basically free reign to just kind of do whatever he wanted, however he wanted.
Yeah, because I think if I remember correctly, you know, the previous record just flopped, and then he got all depressed, and then he sort of like when he went to Johannesburg, just sort of just said, you know, just I'm not going to associate with the outside world and just do this for like however many months it was.
Yeah,
and just whatever happens is whatever happens, and then
and I think that he took on that initial excitement of something new. You know, it's just like when you get into something new, like you're acting. You know, it's just like you had no idea that this was there. You all of a sudden have this love and appreciation for something, and now it's just like, wow, I'm really excited about doing this. Let me go whole hog into this thing and just kind of work on it. You know, So that's kind of essentially how this all came to be. So let's do a little bit of gumboots.
Cool.
I just gotta say thank you. Thanks for coming on, man, and talking to me about this.
You know, I'm honored, honestly. This is like, and it's, you know, for me, it's also nice because, you know, we've known each other a long time, and, but especially because of the pandemic, and especially because I live out in LA, you know, it's been rare, the occasion that we get to actually sit down and have a conversation. And so I know this was sort of interview-ish, but honestly, it's just been really nice to like just have a conversation with you in general. Like,
I mean, if you were here and just hanging out and just like, you know, we put the record on for ourselves just to listen to, I mean, we would essentially have the same conversation.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I might get up and dance a little bit more, but
oh, I get it. Yeah, of course. But that's just we're dealing with what we've got, you know. So this has been great.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and congrats on 50 episodes. And
thank you.
That is dedication, honestly. You know,
doing my damnedest.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could do one and say, "No, fuck it."
I almost did. There's still times. There's still times I'm just like, "Oh, fuck it, man. I don't want to do this."
For sure.
You know, you have these moments, but you know, you got to just push through and keep on working on it. Keep on making it better, right?
If that's what moves you, then yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah,
and it keeps people connected, you know.
I hope so. I don't know. I personally don't know. I mean, like,
we just connected.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I like talking to people. I mean, like me doing it is one thing. What people get out of it by listening to it is a different thing, and I don't know what that is. But I hope it connects in some degree. I hope it kind of, you know, puts some perspective into people's minds. You know.
Absolutely. You know, again, I would say without them in mind, that's your best art, you know?
Oh yeah.
So you know, if they don't want to listen, fuck them.
Exactly. Fuck them if they can't take a joke. That's what I always say. All right, man.
Yeah.
It's been great. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.